Education Today. I'm Katie Glaschewski, a junior at Ford City High School.
And I'm Paige Klingsmith, also a junior at Ford City High School.
You know those magical sounds you hear coming from each of our schools a few times a year? You know the ones I'm talking about? The Christmas music, end-of-the-year concerts, and district band festivals. Well, all of those students had to start somewhere, right?
Well, today we are going to take an inside look at a handful of our district students who just started playing instruments this year. Our Education Today cameras followed a group of flutists from Lenape Elementary over the last 7 months to monitor their yearly progression with their instruments. Today, we've brought in Mr. Robert Scumai, the instrumental music instructor at Lenape Elementary. Welcome to Education Today.
Please tell us briefly about yourself and your roles with the district.
Well, I've been a music teacher for 32 years. I did my Bachelor of Science work at Indiana University, and I have studied towards my master's at Duquesne University. Our bands have gone to state-level conventions in 1993 and 1996. In 1999 and 2001, our bands were invited to an Eastern Conference, which involved 13 states from the eastern part of the United States. So the students from Ford City have touched the nation through their music.
That's really cool.
Wow. When you first begin with new students, what kind of goals do you set for them, whether week to week, month to month, or yearly?
Well, the two things that I try to establish in the long term as well as immediate are to develop the sense of pitch and to develop the sense of rhythm. Without those two ingredients, music is not going to happen. We learn rhythm a lot through the way we move our bodies. We're born with heartbeats, and it keeps a steady pulse. I try to instill in students to keep that beat steady. Also, it's very important that students be able to match pitch, and there has to be a thought in the brain before the sound comes out of the instrument. Now, granted, some students pick this up in 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months. Some students pick this up in 2 or 3 years, or perhaps never really gain the ability to match pitch. Nevertheless, it's my daily job, my weekly job, my yearly job, day in and day out, to work towards steady beat and pitch matching.
I'm sure as in anything that different students learn at different speeds. When they are in groups such as ones we will be seeing, what challenges are met when trying to keep everyone on schedule?
Well, there again, students learn differently. Some students will have more innate ability than others. Usually, when a classroom, say of 5 students, can hit the target, so to speak, when 80% of the students, when 4 out of 5 are accomplishing the task, and even though there might be one student who is not on board yet, I move on to the next sequence of learning. It's a very sequential process, very similar to the way that we learn to walk. You have to crawl before you walk, before you run. And the sequence of learning, a lot of it is just common sense.
I know whenever I played an instrument, after I'd learned something, it was rewarding, and then you got to move on and go from there.
And it led to something else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Step by step.
Yeah. How often does each group of students meet, and how do you work it into their schedules?
Well, the beginners meet once a week up until January. They have a weekly lesson on either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and the lesson rotates for the purpose that sometimes students will miss their math class. Sometimes they will miss their English class. But in reality, out of a typical day's schedule, they will also miss either library or phys ed or music class or art class. They will also, and the students don't like to miss this, they'll miss recess once every 6 weeks. So once every 6, 7 weeks is really no big deal when they miss any class, whether it's math, because we don't want the students to fall behind in their studies, or whether they miss recess. So we see the students once a week. In January, second semester, we get to see them twice because we get to have band rehearsal on the stage. By then, they've acquired the ability to play one song, and one song leads to 2 songs, and 2 songs leads to 3 or 4. So we put them all on the band. Now they do have to meet certain expectations. They have to be able to play one song with 4 notes in it to be in the band.
I don't want to ignore the more experienced students here because they are constantly learning too. Are there different challenges that you face with them or different techniques that you apply so they continue to grow as well?
Yes, just recently, like I said, for the students to get on the stage, they have to learn one song quite well. And I try to set high standards of learning. If someone walking down the street could listen to it and say, that sounds like a song, they're in the band. It's very common sense. If it sounds very scattered, sorry, you don't have the skills to be on that stage. You're not quite ready. In essence, everyone has the capacity to learn a musical instrument. Some students, it's kind of like a thimble this big. Maybe the most they can learn is hot cross buns. Other students are challenged in their thinking because they could learn a more advanced song. We have a young gal that plays the saxophone who came in last week and played Clementine. She taught it to herself. She learned it on her own on the saxophone, and it was self-motivated learning. Naturally, she is a student that is a little further out there than some of the others. So we try to fill whether your capacity to learn is a thimble or whether it is a jar of mayonnaise, something bigger, or if it's a 5-gallon bucket. We want to give the opportunity for each child to measure up to their innate ability.
As I mentioned in the show opening, we followed a group of your newest students since early in the fall, basically when they are still learning how to put their instruments together. Do these students sometimes find that this process is a little overwhelming?
Absolutely. You know, the brain powers everything. It powers our very next words that are come out of our mouth. And for students, I like to teach 2 instruments, the brain instrument as well as the actual instrument. And when I'm referring to the brain instrument, before the students even open up their flute case, I want them to treat that flute case as if it's a dozen of eggs. If they drop it, the eggs are going to shatter. So treat the instrument very well. This is a very, very common sense thing to teach from the beginning. When the students, before they even put the instrument together, I model the assembly for them. And I have the students pick up their pretend instrument so that they know where their fingers go, where their hands go, where the slide position goes, if they're playing percussion, how their hands should be formed. So they have, in a sense, a preconceived notion before the instrument is ever held in their hands. We're talking a couple $1,000s for a saxophone. It's very delicate. So if I start off, treat the instrument very carefully. Show me on your pretend instrument. And then when they hold the actual instrument, it's quite easy to see. If a student has his hands here, you know they've done their work at home. If a student comes in after 1 or 2 weeks of training and they put their hands in the wrong position, you know that work has not been done at home. So yes, we use a lot of, I try to have the students something like the inner game of tennis. You know, if you imagine you're in a tennis court and you're swinging a paddle, it's very similar. It's using the brain to assemble their pretend instrument, their imaginary instrument.
And also the process of cleaning it and just taking care of it, right?
You don't want to damage it.
Absolutely.
We are going to see some of the things we are talking about in the second half of the show. But when you first introduce the new students to the band ensemble, what kinds of challenges do the students meet there?
Well, on the very first time they walk into band, I choose to do it non-verbally. Non-verbally because the skill of music involves non-verbal communication. Number 1, I want the students to work as a team. If we're playing a song and one student is faster or slower or off pitch, it's going to ruin the sound for everybody else on that stage. So they have to think teamwork. Number 2, they have to learn to listen. Listen to others on that stage. And it's an instantaneous process. It happens or it doesn't happen. They have to, you can't just push your fingers down and hope that the right note comes out. You have to use your ears and match the person beside you, to the left of you, match the person across the stage from you. So they have to learn to listen. Also, they have to learn to watch. So the moment they walk into that room, it's business. Right now, we're gonna get down to business. We're gonna work. and a lot of it is nonverbal communication. For example, one of the things that I try to teach from day one is posture. You're not going to play very well. You're not going to use your air if you're sitting down. Well, nonverbally, yesterday's rehearsal in band, we have a 6th grader who was kind of slouching with her particular instrument. And the nonverbal signal, if I work and I just go like this, they know posture should be attained. If she doesn't catch the signal, I'll say, so-and-so, band, sit up straight. And that's the second try. If the person still doesn't get the posture idea, if they're sitting with their legs crossed or something that's awry, I'll have to call out their name. And that's kind of the last choice. So the 3 things again are teamwork, listening, not just playing your note, and to watch the conductor. And that's the same whether it's at the elementary level, whether it's the high school level, or if you get into professional music. It's the same thing.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention about the music program at this point?
Well, yeah, one of the tricks of teaching, it's hard to teach students 1 day a week and to have them stay on task. When they come into the room, quite often, maybe their mind is someplace else. So you've got 40 minutes, half hour when it comes down to it, to teach something, a concept that they're going to have to remember for a long time. One of the teaching tricks that I use that I've learned over the years is picture yourself when you're sitting in class and the teacher says a certain question, whether it's in college, elementary, high school, and they look at you. Well, this person's mind can turn off. They can say, well, the teacher's not going to call on me because they're not looking at me. So one of the tricks that I use is to perhaps look at this student and call on this student for the response. Initially, when we teach, we try to teach so that everybody gets the right lesson. We want gets the right answer. We want everybody to be successful, so the whole group does it. The true test to find out if you can play the note correctly, if you can sing the note on pitch, is to have you do it in solo. In other words, by yourself. Let's see what you're made of. Let's see if you can do it with the gang. We can all get the right answer. But can you get the right response by yourself? So the trick, the teaching technique again, is to simply look at one student and call on somebody else throughout the room.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to go on location to show you some of the behind-the-scenes footage of our flutists at Lenape Elementary. We'll be right back with Education Today.
Before I came to IUP, I had no idea what college would be like or what role I would play or where I'd be in the future. But when I came to IUP, everything changed. I met people who really made me feel like I belonged. I had great classes at a great nationally ranked university. Hi, my name's Megan Miller. I'm a fine arts major, and this is my university.
We're back with Armstrong School District's Education Today. We're talking with Mr. Robert Scumeye, an instrumental music instructor at Lenape Elementary. Now we're going to take a look at some of our video footage. What we did was visit these students on 4 different dates ranging from the beginning of October to February to follow and hear their progression.
Mr. Scumeye, could you show us a little bit of what is happening as we see the following clip from October?
Initially, the students are listening to a song and moving their bodies to a beat to try to acquire that sense of steady beat. Did you sing the last note? How many people were thinking in their head the melody? Listen, remember how it goes? Do, 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 do. How many people were thinking do, do? Was anybody thinking that? All right, this time I want you to think the bass melody. Think the bass melody and only sing the last note. Bass melody. Hear it in your head. Oh, I saw some people sing the last note, and some people were like this.
Separated style, moving in threes. This time, echo the articulation on the clicks following the performance. Ready?
The air.
Moving in twos.
Use your tongue. Go. Good.
Next.
Mouth.
Moving in threes.
The students here are practicing the use of air. And the air can be either connected, which we call in music legato, or separated. They use the air, then they apply this principle towards their head joint. Use your tongue, like she's doing. She's doing nicely. Use your tongue. That's better, that's better. The use of the tongue, even though it's a basic skill, has to be learned because it's quite foreign to anyone in 4th grade as a beginner on an instrument, the use of the tongue. So we use the connected, do, 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 or separated, toot, 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 toot. So they fill the air, and then they use that air on their head joint, which later on they'll be able to play songs in the connected or the separated style of articulation. Cup the end, roll it down, don't puff your cheeks, and use your tongue to go. Please, team is going to sing the what? Bass melody, and you're going to sing the main melody at the same time. Let's try it. Until I get my CD set. You got it? You think you know what you're doing?
Yes.
All right. When you get to the last note, I'm going to try to pick someone who's not thinking. I want you to audiate the last note. Audiate, in other words, you're going to sing the last note or hear it in your... All right, concentrate. You don't want to be caught on camera now. Think. Go. Do, do. Sing it, everybody. Do, 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 do. All right, you're not going to sing the last note. Let's switch parts. You do the bass line. You do the do, do, and you're going to do. The students are learning here to think music, to think sounds in their head. We try to do this by learning to sing a song and then simply audiating, which means to hear sound in your head without physical sound present. So they think the last note in their head. Later on, we get them to audiate the entire song and perhaps sing the last note. There it is, there it is. That one's working. That was. Here's a girl that's doing it. Everybody listen to Ms. Lindhart. I forgot your first name. Brianna. Listen to her. She's using. Listen, kids. That's the right. You hear that? Yes.
Okay, let's move over to December now.
The students are learning to play the song that they were singing a month or two ago. So they learn to sing the song first, and they're going to take the thought in their head and apply it to their instrument using either the connected or the separated styles of articulation. Who wants to get their name on the board today? All right, if your name's already on the board, I don't want you to do it again. You can't get your name on the board twice, right? Who wants to go first? All right, let's go. First, second, third. Sarah, you're going to be third. Okay, honey? Here we go. You're going to have how many chances?
2.
The students that are raising their hands are the ones that can successfully play the first song, which is called Major Duple. And if they can keep a steady beat and match the pitch fairly well, that is their ticket to be on stage. As educators, we know that we're not the only teachers in class, but quite often students learn from each other. If a student doesn't know perhaps how to play that song, or if they haven't done their work at home so much, they often look at other students in the class and and say, oh, I think I can do that. I think I can do this. So by putting their names on the board, I allow enough time for the learning to take place. Some kids learn it in 2 or 3 weeks. Some kids won't learn it for maybe 2 or 3 months, but I try to allow that amount of time for them to hit the target, so to speak, to get on task, to reach that goal, that small goal.
Do, mi, do,
Just the dominant ones.
re, ti, re.
So that child just met the objectives. Here we are learning to identify tonic and dominant patterns. And they are learning that do is the resting tone for a tonic pattern. A tonic pattern consists of do, mi, or so. So the response from them is simply not to say the answer like do, but the correct response is for them to attach it to a musical sound. Playing them on your flutes. Pick up your flutes, please. And after we get done playing it, I'm going to ask you to identify it. We're going to add, so when they heard so, mi, do, the correct answer was do, tonic, and the students were asked to only identify the dominant patterns in this particular instance. Re, do, ti, do. Now that you remember the fingers, repeat after me, and we will identify the patterns. Repeat after me. Do, mi, do. Let's do this pattern. Everyone echo. Do, mi, do.
Do, mi,
Perform. Echo. Say do, tonic pattern.
do, tonic
All right,
pattern.
concentrate. Place your fingers and sing. La.
La.
Here the students were learning to identify the patterns simply not by singing the answer, but by performing the answer on their instrument. It's teaching the students to learn how to think music in the brain. Hopefully it'll lead on to what we call audiation. And audiation is simply the ability to hear music without physical sound being present. So by the students identifying, we teach in tandems. In the early lesson, we taught connected and separated styles of articulation. At this point in their development, we were teaching them to identify tonic patterns and dominant patterns. Not only by knowing the answer, but by playing the answer on their instrument. Quite often, we can know, we learn things in tandems. There's night, there's day, there's up, there's down, there's tonic, there's dominant, there's connected, there's separated. So when the students are learning their instrument, I feel it's very important that often, if they know a tonic pattern that contains la, do, or mi, if they hear mi, re, ti, or si, they will actually hear that it's not la, do, or mi. So you learn in chunks, one little bit at a time. Later on, they get to discriminate the learning at a more advanced level. So it comes in stages. It's you crawl before you walk, before you run. So the learning sequence is very slow, matching one pitch. A little more advanced, and then you put tags on it. You identify the learning. You say that was a tonic pattern. That was a dominant pattern. When it occurs in a song, hopefully the students will be able to hear what is happening. Although it is abstract in a sense, it's very difficult. It's complicated learning, and as teachers, we try our best to boil it down and make it easy for the students to understand.
Okay, let's jump ahead to early February now. We can really begin to hear some differences in their playing at this point.
Well, here we are in February, learning a new song. The new song, hopefully they'll be able to play through time, but first it becomes a thought in the head. It becomes a song that they can sing. Along with the melody, we learn the bass line.
That's Rio, you're working on the railroad.
Bass melody, and then we're going to do some rhythms. Bass melody first. Hear it? Bass line consists of nothing but tonic and dominant patterns. Here the students are going to experience, again, tandems in the learning process. Big beat versus little beat. Matching pitch. If someone has their thumb down, just your index finger and your pinky finger. See? Good. Big beats first. Macro beats. Notice that the students are not moving their bodies now, because at this point in the learning, they've already moved their feet, they've moved their hands to the big beat, to the little beat. So the beat becomes internalized. Now these are fourth graders playing syncopation. Normally, this will not occur in fourth grade music. Nevertheless, it helps to form their vocabulary. Just like a person that maybe has a vocabulary of 250 words will not be able to communicate as well as someone that has 1,250 words in their vocabulary. So T,
T,
C,
C,
watch my fingers, B,
B,
T, C, B.
T, C, B.
Right now the students are playing patterns that will be used in songs, and they are tonic and dominant patterns. This is simply imitation, it's discriminatory learning. Later on, through time, the students will be able to think on their own 2 feet. Here a student has learned to play Mary Had a Little Lamb pretty much on her own ability, because the skills were established, the notes were taught, and then the learning becomes self-motivated. You are going to be major duple, all right? But then, without stopping, go back to the beginning. You get to be the melody. You get to be the bass melody. Here we go. Sit tall. Everybody begin. Switch, pause, now, go.
Okay, that's our show for tonight. We hope you enjoyed an inside look at how some of our elementary band students progressed throughout the year to bring you at home those wonderful sounds you heard at various times throughout the year.
We'd like to thank our guest, Mr. Robert Skamai, an instrumental music instructor at Lenape Elementary School. We'd also like to thank the various students who participated in this video and their parents for allowing them to participate.
Finally, we would be remiss if we didn't recognize our film crew of Ford City High School, led by teacher Mrs. Barb Keller.
Please join us again next week for another look at Armstrong School District. DVD copies of all this and Education Day programming can be requested by contacting Chris Garatano and Katanning Junior High School. Visit our website for updated news and information about the district. Have a great week.